everybody. Welcome back to a special episode of The Evolving Activist. I'm Lauren Morn, and I'm thrilled to invite you to have a chat, fireside chat, as it were, with my friend Diane Waltner. Diane is an animal activist in Wichita, Kansas. And a little bit about how we met. I was living in New Mexico when I first connected with Diane, and I was about to move to Wichita for a couple of years. And Ray Sikora, who was part of the animal rights group um, in New Mexico in Santa Fe, suggested that I get in touch with Judy Carmen and with Diane Waltner in Wichita. So, tip for everybody who's planning to move to a new city: get in touch with animal activists in your, or any activists in your new city before you move, because it was so nice to know that when I got there, I already had a community of people who were just kind and like-minded, and it made the whole move so much easier. And it was really sweet to actually meet them in person. And I think the first weekend I was there, we all went on a road trip to go and watch Jasmine Singer speak about one of her books. So here we are, coming full circle to speak about Diane's book, and I'm thrilled to have you on the show, Diane. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lauren. It's such an honor to be here.
I've loved working with you on this book too. So Diane's not only a friend, but she's actually been working with me as a coaching client through some of this. And this book has just been a beautiful process to watch you write, to watch you conceptualize, and then come to the point of birthing it out into the world and having it available to people. So tell me
Thank you.
what motivated you to write the book?
Well, I guess it all kind of started years ago because I've always loved books and always deep in the back of my mind, I thought it would be exciting to be an author and working in bookstores for years. And then I at that point I never had any idea what it would really look like. But as I started delving more into animal rights and talking about my story a little bit more, and kind of feeling that maybe there was something there that I needed to tell, that I needed to tell my story, that it might be helpful for others. And so I just started feeling this compulsion to put it out there.
That's huge. That's huge. And I know that you're a pretty high introvert. So the idea of putting yourself out in the world, even through written word, was quite a big deal for you.
Yeah, I've never been one who likes to stand out. I usually, I'm usually the wallflower. I usually tend to hide. I prefer to hide instead of be out in the open. Um, so it was a big challenge, and it was difficult.
Yeah. Well, you're standing out in all the right ways, that's for sure. What made it so what made it such an imperative? I mean, this is you'd prefer to stay in the shadows, you'd prefer to stay hidden, but this book took on a life of its own. What made it so important?
Well, I just felt a real calling. I thought if there was something, I mean, I was feeling a lot of guilt about things that I had done in my past, and felt some responsibility to try and rectify some of those wrongs. And I was hoping that by telling my story, that would help other people uh, to understand from both perspectives, because part of it was I wanted to not demonize people involved in the animal agriculture industry, and to realize that they are humans too, and also to connect with activists who who uh, could kind of I kind of wanted to unify the two groups, and
Mm.
show that and to do anything that I could to help the animals. The animals were the big
Right.
reason, because I felt responsibility for some of my actions in the past, and I wanted to do what I could to try
Yeah.
and help.
Yeah. And I see that in all of your animal activism. It's just like how um, you never let up. Um, you're always motivated. You always show up for the animals, and I feel like that is that reparations piece of it too. It's like um, you've seen the other side. You've seen what we do to them. Um, and you're right. A lot of people, the vast majority of people involved in the animal agriculture world are I guess victims of the ideology. They're victims of the social construct, right? And um, some of them are absolutely victims in the most literal sense. They're deeply traumatized. They're deeply um, oppressed. A lot of them. Um, and if we can refrain from othering them, if we can see them as human beings and help them connect the dots like you did, then there's hope for people to move away from that social construct, right? That mass brainwashing that we were all born into. I think that's the thing, right? We forget, right? Sometimes I call it the vegan amnesia, right? It's like we see the light and we change, and then we forget that we were ever complicit in that world. Um, Whereas most of us were. There's more and more people now vegan from birth, but certainly in my age group, you know, I don't think I know anybody personally who was vegan from birth. We were all brought up this this kindness world, and we have had to make a shift. And then for you, I know that you were very close to your family, and I know that community is really important to you. So I feel like that really speaks to the struggle that a lot of vegans and animal rights activists have, that having to kind of move away from the family, right? Move away from the way we were brought up and how painful that can be. And you really capture that beautifully in your book. It's just, the pain of feeling that separation. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, Lauren. Yes, it's as someone who never felt like they really belonged, it was really scary to think of rejecting the one place that I did feel like I belonged. So it is hard. Like a lot of people say that going vegan is so easy, and in a lot of ways it is, especially from a practical perspective. But from a social, emotional, cultural perspective, it can be very difficult. And I wanted, that's the thing I
Huge.
wanted people to know, that, that I do understand how difficult it can be. It's not just substituting Boca burgers for hamburgers. It goes a lot deeper than that in the whole shift, in your whole mindset shift.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also think, for those of us who are kind of more of an urban upbringing, it may actually be easier than for people who've had, a deeply community driven upbringing. So, you were raised as a Mennonite or in the Mennonite tradition. Um, so like a lot of people, food is a really big part of your culture, and so it's not just, oh, I'm changing some choices about how I consume, or where, or whatever, right? About what I consume or where. It's also, I'm making decisions that are going to separate me from my culture and my family. And that coming to that conviction inside yourself of what's really important, and that compassion, which is an important part of the Mennonite tradition, but to take that compassion and actually live it in every part of your life, is really, really big. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
tell me, yeah, keep going.
no, go ahead. I was just
So
going
I
to
was
say,
thinking, you mentioned, you were going to say what?
I was just going to say, expand on as far as the compassion. Yes,
Yeah.
we were extremely compassionate towards all humans. It's just, as with so many people, that compassion just stopped at humanity. And so, as I became more aware of the sentience of all other animals, it just didn't make sense to not include them in our compassion.
Yeah, so true, right? Our compassion. You're basically just completing the compassion circle. Right? Yeah. I have a little bit of a lag on my Zoom, so I'll pause before I ask my next question. Um, all right. So you mentioned, being an introvert, it's hard to put yourself out there. Um, was that the only challenge that you faced to bring this book into being?
No, that was certainly a big one, but then, well, as with any memoir, part of the challenge lies in you know recalling the memories, going back and trying to remember as accurately as possible what happened, and then the challenges in deciding what to include and how much do you want to expose yourself, and what is so there were a lot of challenges related to that, um, and then just some uh, practical challenges about figuring out how to put it all together, um, and I had the great fortune of working with a wonderful editor, and the coaching. I mean, without your coaching and Sherry's coaching, it never would have come to be, I'm sure. So there were a lot of there was a lot of resistance and a lot of fear, because I
Mm,
still don't know exactly how my family is going to respond. I still, there's still a lot of uncertainty. So, and that was with me throughout. Um, but, uh, but in the end, I just uh, the compulsion to get my story out there was far greater than those fears. And again, I'm grateful to you for helping me work through some of those.
you're welcome. I think that I'm hearing two things in there, right? I'm hearing that that when something is important, when the story demands to be told, right? That it's kind of, it becomes this imperative, right? It must be told, and it drives you through some of those hurdles and through some of those challenges. But I'm also hearing that it takes a village, right? That it's not just a matter of like locking yourself in a room and then writing a book and ta-da, it's done. It's like that, finding people to support you through it, finding good editors and proofreaders, and people who can design your cover and people who can lay the book out and all that stuff. That none of us are an island, um, and that really having support is critical to being able to accomplish pretty much anything, right? Yeah.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Between,
Mm.
without the coaching, without my friends, and certainly without the editor and proofreader, it never would have been anywhere near the book that it is. Um, and
Yeah.
and without the support, it probably never would have been at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so everybody make sure that if you've got a story to tell, if you've got something that you want to put out in the world, get your friends around you, get your coaches, get all the support you can, because you will need it. Like your conviction will be tested. I think there were many a conversation Diane and I had where she was like, I just don't think I'm going to do this, and I'm like, no, wait. But ultimately, it was important enough, right? It was important enough. It's just like making the decision to go vegan, right? It's important enough. Um, so I'm
And
curious
while it's
too. Yeah, keep going.
oh, I said while it's yeah, well, there were certainly stops, a lot of stops and starts. Like there was uh, underneath it all, there was still the intensity, the intense desire that I knew I had to. That I, for my own peace of mind, I knew I eventually had to do it.
Yeah.
But it was. But a lot of support was really necessary to complete it.
Yeah, it wasn't going to let you go until you'd done it, until it had come
Exactly.
out in the world, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So what was most surprising for you as you went through this process of bringing this story out, telling it, digging back through your past? Because I know that wasn't easy for you to go back to the past and kind of relive some of those things. Um, what surprised you about the whole process?
Um, well, one thing that surprised me is a couple of the memories that came up uh, that I really hadn't thought about in years. Some of the things that came up when I was going through this, and and then seeing how some of them fit together in the whole bigger story, and how it contributed to uh, to the whole of it. Um, it was, I mean, I knew it was going to be challenging, but there were places where I was surprised that it was still as painful as it was. Um,
Yeah, there was a lot of grief that you still needed to process, and self-forgiveness. Yeah. And there were some big revelations in the book too. There were things about you that were quite surprising to people who knew you and who didn't know some of these things, like just how you were struggling and how you were um, trying to cope with your struggles. And I think that was so hugely brave of you to be able to speak about, like, hey, I was self-medicating, and that's all of that pain from the past. I was just basically putting a layer of booze over it, and that you'd been quietly struggling with this and nobody knew about it. And so the fact that you were able to find the strength to come out and say that, and to work through that and to address it and to find, again, that extension of compassion, right? So first it was compassion for people, and then it was compassion for all sentient beings, and then finally the circle completed with compassion for yourself. And being able to move away from having to self-medicate. That, you did a lot of personal work through the process of writing this book.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that was hugely brave.
well, thank you, and that's, yeah, that's very true because with the exception of a couple of drinking buddies, nobody even really knew that I drank much, and it took about a year of being alcohol free before I was ready to say something publicly. And I do have to just mention Annie Grace's book, This Naked Mind, also, because without
Mm.
discovering that, I might not have been actually started on the path to non-drinking, which
Yeah, yeah,
which ended up, even though I had thought about writing this book, while I was still drinking, I had thought about it, but I think that was not the right time yet. I think I needed to go through the process of giving up alcohol and going through some of the inner work that I did with that for this to be for the book to be ready to be birthed.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that part of that message for other activists and for other vegans out there is is caught up in that whole process. It's like it wasn't just your journey to veganism, it was also your journey through that dark night of the soul, basically, um, to loving yourself enough, like you said in the book, to stop killing yourself. You know, and that's what the animals want from us. They want us to be whole and healthy, so that we can stand for them and with them. You know, so um, what did you learn about yourself?
Pardon me?
What did you learn about yourself as you went through this process?
Well, um, I guess I learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was, to be able to be that vulnerable and that open. And because I've had a couple of people comment to me uh, privately that they respect me, but there's who have had issues with substance abuse, but you know they admire my courage, but something that they could never do, and I'm uh, grateful to have the opportunity to connect with people who may be feeling that way. So and I have developed, certainly a deep compassion for people who are struggling with addictive issues,
Mm.
and I learned that that the well, certainly my compassion extends to those humans as well as to the animals, and
Yeah, yeah,
that that I have more courage than I thought that I mean, just a couple of years ago, I can't even imagine that I would be here, certainly not in such a public way, that I would be talking about these things. So it has been a very a lot of growth. It has been a learning experience and a growing experience.
totally, totally. And yeah, you mentioned having compassion for people working in the animal agriculture industries, and addiction is a huge problem. That a vast majority of people working in those jobs actually do self-medicate. They drinking drugs. So there is that need for people to try and cope with what it is that they're being asked to do by society. So I think that, again, having some compassion for people and helping them find other ways. It's why I'm so thrilled about the efforts of organizations to help, for example, dairy farmers find other ways, right, to move from dairy farming to nut milks and stuff like that. Like that we have to give people something to move towards, and something that's not going to destroy other beings, whether they be human or not human. So I think that there's a lot there, in terms of just not even just the activists, but the people who haven't yet made the connection. And the fact that they are putting other people in a position where they're needing to self-medicate to get through what it is that they're doing every day. And a lot of people, I think, will say, well, they've got a choice, they can find another job. And I think that that's an incredibly privileged thing to say, because um, a lot of people in those industries can't just go find another job. The industries are pretty oppressive, and they tend to prey on people in rural areas, people who have fewer socioeconomic choices. And then there's also that element of this is a family business, right? This is all we know. Um, And so that's, I think, why it's so important for us to support initiatives that fight factory farming, for example, support initiatives that help move animal agriculture businesses to something that's more humane and ethical and sustainable. So, and I love that your story is part of that whole tapestry, you know.
And I'd also like to to remind people, especially in the activist community, to be open to those who may be involved in the industry, in whatever animal exploited industry, who either are getting out or want to get out. I mean, I'm reminded of this woman that I met at Vegetarian Summerfest the year that I went. And after one of the sessions, which I had talked a little bit about my work at the hatchery, and she came up to me afterwards and said, and thanked me for mentioning that, because she used to work in a medical research lab, and she said that, you know, she didn't know where. Excuse me, I might get emotional, but she said she didn't know. She didn't feel like she belonged anywhere,
Yeah.
because she, of course, she was out of the research. She didn't want to be involved in that community anymore, but she didn't feel welcome in the animal rights community because people were horrified at what she had done. And I just felt for her so much, because part of me felt that same way, not knowing how activists would react to, you know, to my story, just like they reacted to her and her stories about her research testing.
Right, right. That's such an important point, right? We need to welcome people into the movement. We need to welcome people to a new life choice, right? Um, and vilifying them and calling them monsters is not going to help them make that change. Um, yeah, and I'm sorry that you felt that way, and yet you still became a very active animal rights activist. You didn't let that fear of being ostracized by this community stop you from getting involved and from doing your work. Um, but yeah, I that is that is a big deal. You know, we can't keep punishing people for what they may have done in the past. We need to help them to move towards a better future. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
for that.
I'm so grateful and so feel so blessed to have such a wonderful, you know, group here in Wichita, who has been, you know, who have been so supportive, who have been so so kind, and
Mm.
have that I'm just really grateful to know they've been amazing. Without our little animal rights group here, it would be a lot different, and I may never have even met you. So
I gotta say, like the Wichita Animal Rights Group is one of the best animal rights groups I've ever been a part of. Like it's just it was so nice to feel so welcome and just to have a really active group of it's not a big community, you know, and I was pretty nervous to move to Kansas, you know, because of it being in the heartland, you know, and um, it felt so great to be in this community of people who were just taking action anyway, you know. So I had a lot of fun with you all. So
well,
I think
and
we've
we
made
miss you.
lifelong friends.
Yes, we miss you.
Yeah. uh, so talk to me about the gifts to you out of this process, because I know that, you know, yeah, it was hard, and you did a lot. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this process for you, and through it all the book kept saying, I've got to be written, I've got to be out there in the world, make it happen, make it happen. and you discovered these resources within yourself. You discovered the strength, you discovered the courage, and the resilience and the perseverance, right? um, what what was the greatest gift to you of doing this?
I think the greatest gift was peace.
Say more
Feeling
about that.
relieved, relieved, like I said, the peace of mind. I have put it out there. I have heard from a couple of people. I'm so thrilled and honored that it has spoken to a few people so far that I know of, and am hoping that you say I can be of help to others, both people in the industry and animal rights activists, and trying to, bridge the gap. But the gift is that I just I feel at peace.
Yeah, that's a beautiful gift, right? Yeah. And I feel like the story itself is one of finding peace through, every shift that you made in your life, every transition, every movement, every time you kept coming back to the compassion, that you would find another level of peace. That becoming vegan itself was a huge source of peace, right? That learning to love yourself and to let go of the alcohol gave you another level of peace. And then bringing this story to the world so it can help other people, yet another level of peace.
Exactly.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. What do you hope um, readers will take away from the story?
Well, that it's never too late to do the right thing. It's never too late to show your compassion to all beings and to yourself. It's
Mm,
never too late to change. Um, there's lots of support and help out there, and it's really freeing and liberating to um, learn to live in alignment with your own values and principles, and there's no greater gift than feeling that congruency.
beautiful. Yeah. Living in alignment with our values and principles. I love that. And, you know, everybody, I just also want to share with you that Diane put a couple of recipes in the back of the book for some of the more traditional Mennonite dishes that she's veganized. And I'll be sharing that with my sister in law, who has a Mennonite background. So, yeah. So, you followed the compulsion, you followed the imperative to get the story out there. And I know that there's a bunch of other vegans and activists out in the world who have a story to tell, a powerful story. What wisdom would you share with them to help them to do just that?
um, just uh, just do it, as they
Just
say.
do it.
I know it's hard and intimidating, and I'd certainly be more than happy to connect with anybody who wants to talk about it, or if I can offer any assistance, I'm delighted to do so. But I just think it's so important. I mean, I know that a lot of the inspiration that I got for both going vegan and for going alcohol free were in listening to other people's stories.
Mm,
And one of the most powerful films to this day, I still think, is Peaceable Kingdom, where it talks about the farmers' stories and how they transitioned and their awakening realization and transition to veganism. And I don't think there is anything for me personally, anything much more powerful than that. And the beauty of telling your story is that nobody can argue with you about your experience and about your feelings, whereas they can if you just try and spout facts and figures. And, that may or may not be uh, persuasive. But if you can relate to people on a personal level with your own story and try and just let them see what you're seeing and experiencing and trying to draw them in that way, I think storytelling is crucial to growing the movement and to connecting with people and helping them to make the change, like on both ways. For because another thing I hope to, by talking more openly about alcohol, I hope to help reduce the stigma against that too, because having lost a couple of dear friends to alcohol abuse, I really care about that also. And I know at least one, it's was too ashamed to even talk about it. And if we can reduce that shame, reduce all shame and allow everyone to be more open about what's going on with them. And I think by telling our stories, which you know, in different ways can help to promote that and to help others to feel more like they can share their stories.
Yeah. Yeah. When we hear somebody's story, we feel less alone, right? We feel inspired by their path. Um, you're right about the shame, that if we can, if we can, I think honestly, one of the most powerful things we can do is to eliminate shame in terms of moving people forward towards a more compassionate and humane lifestyle, right? So we can take the shame away and welcome people in and encourage people to live, as you say, in alignment with their values, right? Huge, huge. And Peaceable Kingdom, The Journey Home, that was actually that was my vegan maker. That was the movie that tipped me from vegetarian to vegan. So you're right. Telling our stories can be hugely powerful. Nice. So how can people get how can people get the book? That's really important. Tell people how they can get the book and tell them how they can get in touch with you if they want to reach out and have a conversation.
Well, the book is currently available on Amazon. It's available as an ebook or in print. And actually, I just discovered for those in Wichita, if you want to order through the local Watermark Books, one of my one of my friends on Facebook friends emailed them about it, and they did put it in their online catalog. Now it is a little
That's
bit more
fantastic.
ordering. It is a little bit more ordering through them, but then you do support. But then you can support a local indie bookstore as well as a local indie author. But other than that, yes, at some point I may make it available on other platforms. But to get this out there, right now it's on Amazon.
Yeah,
Um,
excellent.
and
And everybody, by the way, I want you all to go and buy it at least on Kindle so that we can push Diane up into the bestseller list. Okay, because it's a pretty volatile list. It moves around a lot, but in the animal rights category, she did get up to number 5 at one point. So if you all buy the book, maybe we can get her to number 1, and I'd be thrilled if that would happen. So there's my
thank you.
little plug for you, Diane.
Thank you. I would be too. Um,
So
and
how do they get in touch with you?
Well, and I do have a website, evolvingintowholeness.com.
Mhm.
You can certainly contact me through that, and I do have a few other things on there. I do have some photos and some other, and I will be adding more information and more things to that. So I'd love for you to connect with me there. I also have a Facebook page, Diane Waltner author, or is my author page, and then I also have a personal Facebook page. So either way, I'd be happy. Yeah, I'd be happy to connect with. I'd be happy to connect with you. So
Nice, nice. And if you're in Wichita or if you're in Kansas, join the Wichita Animal Rights Meetup group. Um, that Diane puts a lot of effort into like really kind of building that community and bringing that into the, I mean, gosh, we did all sorts of things, circus protests and petitions, and they do fabulous potlucks, and they've even been doing vegan virtual potlucks. So get on that Facebook group too. So
and hopefully we'll be back to in-person potlucks later this year. We'll see.
hopefully, yeah, yeah, good. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me about your book and the process. Oh, hang on just a second. Um, Piper's found a mouse in my office, so I'm going to see if I can catch that from her. But let me wrap this up. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. Um, Everybody, I'll put all of that information in the show notes down below. Make sure that you go and buy the book. Make sure that you reach out to Diane, and as always, for the animals, solidarity.
Thank you so much, Lauren. It's been a pleasure to be with
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.